Hi everyone! Today we'll be... Sorry, I just got a text from my friend. Make that several texts. Sorry about this, but I should check to make sure everything is okay. Oh, she's raving about this new smoothie trend. I do love a good smoothie. It can make your skin glow, your fingernails stronger, and make your hair grow 3 inches in less than a month? That cannot be correct. Can it? Hang on, I gotta text her back. I want to know what her source is for this information. She's saying she just saw it on Instagram from her favorite influencer? You need a more reliable source to back that up. Oh, this is perfect. This is actually what we're going to be talking about today. Finding sources for our research using the internet and how to tell if those sources are reliable or not. As you know, we've started our research writing unit, and you should now have a research question about technology ready to go. During this lesson, we'll be learning about sources, what they are and how to find them, and what to look for to determine if the source is reliable or not. In order to learn more about your topic and eventually create your argument, you'll need to find a variety of sources. What exactly do I mean by sources? Well, sources are where we get our information. For your project, these could include sources like newspaper and magazine articles, books, websites, peer-reviewed journal articles, and scientific studies. Since the internet is a wild, untamed frontier where people think a smoothie can make your hair grow overnight, you'll need to be able to think critically about the sources you find to make sure they are credible. We'll get into much more detail with that in our next lesson. So, first things first, how do I find these sources? Well, the internet is the perfect place to begin, but it's so enormous. Even if we start with a search engine like Google, we'll still get an overwhelming number of search results, and many of them won't be useful at all. The good news is that there are tricks to using search engines more effectively and efficiently, and I'm about to let you in on the secrets of searching for sources. Now, it might be tempting to just plug your research question into Google, but this really isn't the best way to search. Pick out the keywords and phrases from your research question and search using those. For example, if my research question is, how will virtual reality change the way we shop in the next 20 years? I want to consider what I need to learn before I try to answer the question. I'm realizing I actually know nothing about virtual reality, so I think I'll start by searching for some background information on that topic. I'll search for virtual reality technology to start off my research. Some of these sources look good, but I'm seeing a lot of stuff that doesn't look helpful at all. This brings us to tip number 2. Use quotation marks around keywords and phrases. Only use quotation marks around the most important words or phrases. Do not include extra words like and, or, of, the, etc. This forces the search engine to only look for websites that use those words or phrases. Let me add those quotation marks and try again. This is so much better. I'll bookmark a few to check out later. By the way, bookmarking means saving a site on your web browser so you can find it easily. Now I want to find some information that may answer my research question, which is about both virtual reality and shopping. Which brings us to search engine tip number 3. Use and to force the search engine to find 2 or more words or phrases together on a website. You can use or to find sites that have one word or phrase or another similar word or phrase. It's important to note that you must type and or in all capital letters for this to work. So I'll search virtual reality and shopping. This will give me articles that have both of these terms within them. Not all the articles will use the term shopping though, so let's add some or terms like retail or e-commerce. So I've found some good articles, but I'm struggling to find academic sources for my project. I'd really like to have at least one scientific study or journal article to make my argument more convincing. Good thing there's one last tip that can help with this exact situation. Our last tip is to use Google Scholar to find academic sources like peer-reviewed journal articles, research studies, and other academic writing on your topic. Now it's time to talk about whether or not the sources you found are reliable sources. We'll dive deeper into this in our next lesson, but for today, we'll focus on green flags and red flags of source reliability. Green flags being positive signs that a source is reliable, and red flags being, well, red flags, warning signs that a source is not to be trusted. Let's start with the green flags. Take a moment to pause. Are there any green flags you can think of that might let you know that a source is trustworthy or reliable? The first thing I thought of is the ending of a website, also called a domain extension. If a website ends in .org, .edu, or .gov, it is often a more reliable source than a website that ends in .com, .net, or another extension. This is because .org extensions tend to belong to nonprofit organizations or other reputable organizations. .edu extensions are related to educational organizations like colleges and schools, and .gov means it's a government website, which are often a good source for facts and statistics. On the other hand, .com and .net are typically related to commerce or business, meaning they are more likely to be trying to sell you a product. Now, to be clear, there are many .com websites that can be useful for your research, like major journalistic publications and news outlets. If you're unsure based on the website's domain, do a little more research on the site itself. Another easy way to tell if a source is reliable is checking to see how recently it was published or when it was last updated. Especially with a constantly evolving topic like technology, it's important to have up-to-date information to ensure accuracy. Lastly, skim the source and evaluate the writing. Is it well written and easy to follow without grammatical errors or typos? Does it include evidence in the form of quotes or citations from other sources to back up its claim? If you answered yes to those questions, it's a good source to bookmark for later. Now, let's look at some red flags for sources. Take a moment to pause and think. What would you consider a red flag of reliability for a potential source? Here's what I came up with. One of the most obvious red flags is a source that has errors in grammar, spelling, and punctuation. If you see multiple typos on a website, it is definitely not a reliable source. Now, while you're skimming the source to make sure there aren't any obvious errors, also ask yourself if what you're reading makes sense. Are there any outrageous or illogical claims? Is the writing choppy or hard to follow? If you are answering yes, then this source is full of red flags and not worth bookmarking for later. If the website is a personal blog or it says it's an opinion article, these are also red flags. Opinion articles may include useful information and facts, but they are telling the opinion of the writer and will likely be biased. It's best not to use these for sources for an academic project. The last red flag involves looking at the quality of the website. If it's hard to navigate or it looks unprofessional or dated, that's a red flag. If there are hyperlinks that no longer work on the website, that's another red flag. Now you have the tools you need to find some reliable sources. Oh, another text from my friend. She sent me her source. Here, let me show you. Take a moment to pause and evaluate her source. Do you see any red flags or green flags? Wow. I'm going to have a serious conversation with my friend about reliable sources. Let me explain a few red flags we found before we move on. First, there are errors in the writing on the website. Then, there is no evidence backing up the claim. And the claim is pretty outrageous. I know that hair can't grow that fast. It's impossible. The source is also trying to sell us a product, and the phone number listed has scam in the number. Red flag alert! I'm so glad my friend sent me this before she bought this product. In our next lesson, we'll go into more detail about evaluating sources, beyond just green flags and red flags. For now, spend some time researching and practicing the skills we learned today as you work through your PDF. Tomorrow, you will find sources you think will be useful for your project, bookmark them, and complete the graphic organizer in your PDF. That way, you'll know exactly why you saved each source when you come back to your project. Have fun researching your topic. We'll be right here with you every step of the way. Right on!